All right. Time to get to it. Another happy Monday. Mando Monday. What's up, guys? So today I'm gonna do a little paint stuff. We're gonna what's that your voice? Death Trooper. We're gonna go ahead and do a demo of paint setup and all that fun stuff. So what I have here now is just some simple armor, chest plates and belly plate for just a Mando. This is Moncal Prop Shop purchase. It's the smooth Boba Fett, so there's none of the dents or anything in there. And I kind of want to go over a couple things between ABS plastic forms and 3D prints, and we'll kind of go back and forth between the two as we're going. So the reason why I have three different, well, technically it's only two different subjects, is what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you prep work on this to get to this stage, and then from this stage we're going to go ahead and paint this to this stage. So it's going to be kind of like a three round robin kind of thing, if you will. So again, this is the ABS plastics. This is the first time I'm actually messing with ABS plastic parts. I normally use 3D printed parts, which a lot of you know that. I buy most of my stuff through Maker Baked. And I will say that ABS has its pros, but it also has its cons as far as I'm concerned. They're not bad at all. They're just, I'll say inconsistent is the best and easiest term or word I can use for this. As far as prep work, it's easier to prep these than it is to prep a 3D printed part, because 3D prints, you got a lot of lines and stuff that you have to smooth out or fill before you sand, which isn't too big of a deal to me as long as I'm getting these nice crispy clean lines and everything's symmetrical. With this stuff is you don't have to be, there's not a lot of sanding or filling in these at all, but there's a lot of inconsistencies. So I got these and they were already pre-cut, so I just did a little bit more trimming and sanding, but the lines on them aren't going to be consistent throughout the whole part. Like there's going to be various in thickness and stuff in there. You can't really see it too well on the camera, but there's a lot of warbly, wobbly, fidgety stuff that doesn't necessarily hello, what's up, Shocksid? It's not necessarily a big issue when it comes to the grand scheme of things, but for me, I'm kind of a nitpicky person when it comes to consistency and having sharp, clean lines. And the biggest thing that you won't so much notice it around the edges, but in the diamond area you will, and that's like a focal point. So you can kind of see there's two different, I mean, it's not the same. It's got, so you'd have to spend a lot more time cleaning up these lines to make them look right. And if you've done that a lot and you're not worried about it, that's fine, and these are the way to go. But I definitely prefer the consistency of 3D printed parts. This kit isn't necessarily a new kit, but it's something that I wanted to do. I just needed a couple pieces from this kit, and I was convinced to go ahead and just finish the Ahsoka Mando kit with it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to treat this as if I was finishing up this, even though we'll see how far this actually goes with this as a kit. I kind of just wanted the helmet, but if we're going to do a kit, that's what we're going to do. So 3 stages. So if you're using ABS plastic, I mean, this is what it comes like. This is out of the box. I didn't do anything really to it except for try to shave down some of the burrs and whatnot. But for the prep work on ABS plastic, you really only need 2 things. It's going to get noisy here. I always use, for my fine sanding, a 400 wet dry. We don't need to use the wet for this because we're just going to scuff it up. So that way, Sorry, I got background noise, background sounds. Just so that the paint has a bit of something to bite onto it. So you really just, and it's super, super easy. So that's all you need to do. You just need to buff this out. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way so I don't get a bunch of dust all over it before we start painting on that. So, what's up, Misfit? So this is really all you need to do for prep work on this. Is just a light buff sanding on this, on the whole thing. So any shiny so any shiny part on this you have to buff down. Depending on how much you want to buff it down and how even a part you want to get, it kind of depends on the time you're going to spend into it. So either way, 3D printed or this, you're going to have to go ahead and give it a light sanding. So there's sanding involved on either side. You might not have to sand these, but the problem is I don't know if the paint will stick to it really well or not, because it's super, super smooth. So you just gotta rough it up just a little bit. Once you have the whole thing roughed up and it's got a nice consistent kind of surface tension, saying it, boy. Not surface tension, surface texture. Once it has like a similar thing, and you can see there's some inconsistencies with the there's a low spot here that you might have to go fill up later on if you're really getting down and dirty with this thing. Me, again, like I always say, I'm not careful with these things. I like to beat them up. I like to have a little character to them. Another side note, modifying these parts versus modifying a 3D printed part, these are more difficult. And for very, very difficult. The reason for that is if you have a 3D printed part, you can heat up a tool and press that tool into the part, and it'll leave that mark exactly where it's at, and you don't have to worry about destroying the rest of the prop or anything. If you want melted dents or anything like that, you can do that, just heating up something, sticking it to it. That's all you got to worry about. This, however, if you were to do that same thing to this, you heat up a tool, you want a dent, and you press it into there, the heat will go through the part and actually start warping more than the area that you're just trying to work with. And the only solution that I found to deal with that, like when I did my knees are actually ABS plastic, is I heated up the part, I had a bucket of water, or heated up my tool, pressed it in the dent, and then dropped it in the water so that it didn't cause any warpage along the rest of the part. So it kept everything localized and hardened right away. And that's what I would say to do if you're messing with ABS. Always have like a bucket of water or something you can dunk these in right when you're messing with it, if you're adding damage to it. Because if not, you're going to end up with more issues than you necessarily want to have. But anyway, that's it. So all you got to do to prep these guys as far as surface goes. You will have to deburr things, and so just take a file. There's I bought these. There's like 20 of them. They're all different shapes and sizes. I got them from Ben Franklin Crafts. It's just a local, you can probably get a hardware store or anything like that. Super cheap. And you just run it along the edge to get rid of all the burrs. That's all you want to do. You don't have to be rough with it. It's plastic. Just takes them right off. And that's it. I mean, as far as prep work goes, that's it. Now, for painting, I normally, when I'm painting with 3D printed helmet, I'll use my high build sandable primer filler. And that's my primer. I don't have to mess with it. That's it. But for these, because I didn't use any of that, because it's already super shiny, I don't have to fill anything, I used this stuff. So this is actually, because all the paint that I use is the Montana Gold, they do have a primer, and this one is just the white primer, and this is pretty much universal. It's a universal primer for all plastics and all kinds of fun stuff. So I did use this on the pieces in order before I laid down the silver. So primed it. So I just sprayed this whole thing of primer, and then I went over after that was dry with the silver. And that's just because I want to make sure that it has a nice bond. I don't want it to rip up all the paint if I'm messing around with it too much. If you do the paint technique that I'm doing, you definitely want to have a strong bond to the part. If not, you're going to pull your paint right off, and then you just have these bald patches. Some cases, that's okay. Other cases, not so much. And if you do have it happen, just make it work for you. Case in point, if you want to take a look at what I'm talking about actually on this guy. This patch here, and these little spots here, that is actually all the way through into the primer. I used the brown primer, the brownish red primer on this, because I ran out of the gray stuff, and it didn't sit very well. And when I did my peel and pick, it took it all the way down to the primer, which was fine. It looks like a cool added little extra, so you just have to make it work for you. Dirty it up, make it look neat, add the texture in. Same thing with here. It looks all rusty, kind of rusty, warped or whatever. So that's what you want to do, but you want to make sure that you have a nice hold for your part. And this is after we buffed down and got rid of our edges. We laid the primer and we laid the silver. So that's just a quick silver spray over everything. I like to do 2 coats of the silver on top of this stuff, again, because when you're doing the technique that I'm doing, you're blopping it down and you're ripping it off. It tends to rip off the upper surface and leaves the lower surface that's cured underneath there still shiny, so you don't have to worry about losing sheen or anything like that. But alright, so let's see where are our tools at. What are we gonna do? I'm gonna plop this like my paint stand. This is gonna be my paint stand for today. Boom. There you go. One up. One more. So I just got to figure out. There was a huge debate on what I should be painting, what colors I should be painting these. We're gonna go ahead and do the Ahsoka Tano, the House of Tano, whatever we want to call it. So we're gonna do oranges and reds. So we're gonna lay down our base coats and our textures and all that stuff today. That's gonna be our color palette for today. So I have the red orange, which is kind of like this darker. I know it's hard to see in this video, but this darker tone of orange is all kind of up here on the dome, and then this lighter orange, which is not shake well, pure orange, which is all on the visor, the face visor, or whatever you want to call that. That's what that is. So we'll probably two-tone these. The other thing is, so with my Maker Bake setup, Maker Bake actually adds an extra like definition where there's a step down or an angular step that comes across here to add a little bit more character and depth to these panels. These are just flat. Normally I would have contoured with the darker paint as a contour and then the lighter paint over the top of that, so it had some sort of definition and character to it. But since these are just flat, we're gonna have to get a little creative. I might do mists of this stuff just as like a rust effect or something like that, but primarily it's gonna be, we'll probably go for the red orange for most of it. Sorry if you guys can, it's a little windy out here today. Yeah, we'll probably go the major coat is going to be the red orange, and we'll light mist it with our pure orange, or vice versa, whatever end result we want to try and get. So we have multiple different plates, so we're going to play around with that a little bit. We can kind of go back and forth, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We're using this whole technique, so if anybody else has seen this before, we're going to get a lot of this ramped up. So if you guys want to just get into it, or if you guys want to ask me any questions before we just start slapping paint around, any prep work questions or anything like that, we're at that stage, so let me know. I'll go ahead and move this so I don't overspray all over this thing. That would not be fun. Alright. Let's see, what combination should we do? Let's see. I think what we want to do is we're going to go light to dark. And if you notice, these are two different. So there's both Montana Gold paint. The black, if anybody has questions on this, the difference between these two, so I'm told, is this one has a wider spray and a higher pressure. I think that's it. This one has a wider spray pattern and it has a bit more pressure. This uses up a lot more paint than these ones, so this goes a lot faster. And so you got to kind of be careful with that, just so you don't end up with buying 30 cans for nothing. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make some tape balls, prefab. You don't want to make them tight. You still want to have all different patterns here and there. Tape ball. Nice little different textures in there. A little tighter. There we go. Just got a little tape action. And we use the thinner tape for our edges. I think we'll go ahead and start. We'll start with the belly plate. We might as well get this other guy out of here. So we're gonna go, what'd I say? We'll go light to dark. Yeah, we'll go light to dark. That way. It's okay. Now this stuff dries fast. I mean, the work time is only a few minutes. ASMR content. I'm just gonna enjoy. Alright. Okay, this is gonna get everywhere. I'm gonna kind of pull this stuff out of the way for a second. And that's gonna throw. There we go. Alright. Alright, let's see if we can accomplish this without destroying my whole workspace. Is that on there good enough? It's a little wobbly. A little wobbly. Oh, I just sprayed my whole arm. This overspray on this is mean. Alright, so that's the darker tone. Oh, I mean lighter tone, sorry. That's the lighter tone. So now I'm going to go ahead, before this actually has a chance to dry, we're going to dust it, the dark. Just enough, just a quick dusting. And what that does is that gives us this two-tone. I mean, you probably can't see it that well in the camera, but we'll definitely show pictures and stuff later, and you'll be able to tell what's going on in there. So, while this is curing or drying, we want to take our paintball, and it's a little warm out here, so the dry time might be okay. We're going to do a test spot, just so you can kind of see. I don't know if we lost you guys or not, but we're going to do a couple splotches. just to kind of give us a little texture. And we're just going to kind of dab here and there. You rotate your tape ball so that way you don't have the same pattern, wear pattern in there. Just kind of mud it up. And get a smaller tape ball, different wear pattern. Dab, 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 dab. Dab, dab, dab. Dab, 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 dab. Sound effects. The blue tape. We'll add a bigger splotch here and there to give a little extra battle damage. There we go. So we get a nice texture to that. So that's all you do for what I call the deep distressed texture. And what you have to do is once you have this in there, just let it dry for like a minute or two before you start getting crazy into everything else. And what this does is it removes some of the paint all the way down to the silver, and it lifts some of the other, like a lighter coat of the paint, just so it has a little bit of rough texture or beat up. And then when we go back with our darker washes, it'll get stuck in all these little grooves and add more depth. So it's going to have a lot nicer kind of feel to it. We'll add a little depth through there. It's getting dry, so go ahead. Let's do some edging. See if it's dry enough for that. I don't know yet. So again, we'll do a little test. So just put it on the edge here, rub it with your nail a little bit, and pull. There we go. See, it's good enough, except for the fact that my tape just all bundled up on me. All right. So again, just kind of know where you want your tape to be, and rip it off. That worked out so well. It's a little hot out here, so it's going to take a little bit more. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to find where you want your damage to be at. And if you have a lot of the paint left over on your tape, that's fine, because what that does is it actually adds a bit more of a negative space here and there, so you don't have a consistent line all the way through. Oops, and I just ripped off my thingy. That's okay. We got this. See, add more of that little texture down there. I think this tape isn't as sticky as I thought it was. There we go. And there goes the camera. Sorry. Because we're professionals over here. Get a nice little belly rub on there. So I always imagine that the belt or harness on this is going to be rubbing a lot more, so you will have a lot more damage on the underside. Just kind of play that by ear. And I'm using the same piece, so that way it gives us different textures and all that fun stuff. Textures. Now it is warmer out here, so the piece is drying faster than I want it to. So we're going to kind of speed this up a little bit. And by speed this up, I mean slow it down, actually. And if you want the finer, see, the edges on this aren't super defined because they're not 3D printed. So you're not going to have a super clean edge when it comes to removing this stuff. Having difficulty here. What's going on? So if you want a tighter edge, just use your nail and just get in there and do a quick. And she's just going all over the place. And the more this dries, the less paint is going to pull up. So you got to kind of work fast with this. I'm being slow because I'm doing one-handed. But there's that. So what we're going to do now is take our smaller tape ball. And kind of pick. Oh, that's dry already. Just pick out little itty bitty textures. I've lost all my tape. Here we go. I'm going to use the bigger tape. It's stickier. Textures. And I'm going to hold it kind of gently right here. There we go. Now it's peeling up a little stick marks here and there. And you kind of want to go back over in some of your indentation marks with the lighter tape and pull out more of that. See, I kind of left a thumbprint there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I just smooth it out. Done. And depending on how much damage you want on there, I mean, you can go crazy if you really want to. I don't want to go too crazy because I have to remember that we are going to add more texture and depth with paint. But what I do want is knock down some of them more of these edges. Because you also got to remember, maybe these other plates are rubbing on each other. You all know how that goes. So just using my nail to get these finer details. And if you want scratches, like you want a scratch battle damage, we'll see if we can make that happen. So kind of lay your tape gently over this. Don't really like press it anywhere, and just take your nail and just do a line. And it takes off that much. And if you want to make it a bit further, just remember where your line's at. Oops, sorry again. I like to carry it through, missing some spaces. And that's how we get our scratch marks. And depending on how gnarly you want your scratch marks, if you want it to look like you got clawed by something or whatever, you can add multiple scratch marks in the same area. This kind of adds like a nice little pattern. I always try and skip and leave space in here, because let's say if you are getting scratched by something, it's not going to get everything. It's not going to carry through the whole way. And I see a lot of times when people do stuff like that, when they carry a scratch through the whole entirety of a part, but it doesn't make sense when you have certain angles and things that are working against you. So it would almost be like it just looks funky to me, so I don't know. So I like to add gaps. Obviously, this is something you're going to have to personalize yourself and figure out what the best course of action for your piece is, and what damage your character goes through on a daily basis. And that'll give you more of a idea of how much to do here. I think the belly plate's good. That looks pretty. That's like a little beat up. A little bit more beat up than I normally put, but because the helmet is got so much textures to it, then I think we'll be okay. So we'll kind of do a, where'd that helmet at? So you can see that, again, all this damage in here, all these little pick marks and stuff, is all this stuff in here. So we want to make sure that you match all your stuff, all your damage throughout your entirety of your armor. You don't want to have it look like it's patchwork together, unless it is patchwork together. Then that's awesome. And I actually might do something similar to that when it comes down to finishing these plates. Is I might have two of the same color plate and one of the other chest plates a different color, depending on how we go with it. So who knows? it's the sky's the limit when you come to figuring out your design process and you know, all that fun stuff. What I will say is that the fun parts is when you're overlaying designs like this stuff, and that's the same process as what we're doing plus one other step, and that's taping things off. But that's it. So all this texture in battle damage that is done into the white is the same process that we just did here. So like if we're adding stuff overlay, and I might do that with these, I might add like a blue and white kind of stripe or something coming down, or one plate might be blue and white. I'm not sure what exactly I'm going to do with that yet. I haven't, so we're just getting our bases down. But in order to do this, you make sure that this is completely dry first. I usually will give this 24 hours after you do all your damage, after you do all this stuff to get it to the right color and stuff that you want. Let it dry for 24 hours and then do this. Then you add your extra detail, your emblems, whatever you want to put on there. This is a bald patch. We need to do something about that. Hold on. Boop, 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 boop. Sound effects. There we go. See, it just roughed it up a little bit. Didn't need to be a whole lot, but it still kind of follows through this, and this follows there. Still a little, let's do a little top heavy. Let's get in there a little bit more. That might be okay. There. Yeah, that looks okay. Boom. So now we have all our damage set in. And technically, you could let this dry a little bit more if you really wanted to. It is still a little tacky. But once that is dry is when you start adding extra crazy things if you want to do to it. Shadows, for instance. Casting shadows like this darker shadow in here isn't an actual shadow. It looks like it, but it's not. It's all oversprayed with this magic black stuff that I have, which is this. It's a mystic black. And what this is it's almost like mist. It's like a light black mist, and you can kind of do your edges and stuff. And I normally do that after all the damage and all the detail stuff is in there, and all our washes are on there, so you know how much of this to kind of put on and off. And on top of, after I do this, I'll do the same process. I'll rip off edges and wear areas, so that way it has more depth. So it's just another little added fun. So now that we have this guy set up, let's go ahead and do one more plate and do this over again. There it is. So that's our before and after. Bloop, bloop. While this is drying up, I just want to make sure that I'm not going to mess this up too badly whatever. All right, so we'll put this on the side or throw it. That's fine, whatever, it all works. Okay. So go ahead and go with this again. So we start off with the same thing as we did before. We go with our light orange, and then we'll go to our dark overspray, a mist, if you will. The wind's blowing in the wrong direction for this. Yes. Have you ever tried those nozzle caps that graffiti artists use to get different effects? Yes, I have. I have a whole pack of them. And to be honest, the pack I think was like $20 or something for seven of them. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it's worth it. The only thing that I wish I had was a super tiny spray, almost like airbrush size. But even the smallest spray tip that I have found wasn't small enough. It was still a pretty wide pattern, and I'm no graffiti artist, so I don't know how to do that crazy whip technique. The only difference between the nozzles that I use that come with these and my other stuff is I swap out, when I'm doing my Mystic Black, I swap out the tip, the angled tip here, onto that, so I have a flat edge, so I have more control with it. A WD-40 nozzle, that's not a bad idea. I mean, these don't... I wonder if I could do that. Oh, that's brilliant. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to try it. I'll try it and let everybody know. I'll have to go get a can of WD-40 because I don't think that the ones that I have are going to be clean enough for spraying paint on things. So we'll go that. I'm definitely going to try that. That's a great idea. Not going to lie. I'm totally stealing that. Let's see if this wind doesn't completely screw up, overspray the entire workstation I have set up, including my tablet. It's going to be fun. All right, here we go. Again, the black can has a lot more coverage, has a lot more spray coming out. It lays it on a bit thicker. As you can see, there we go. Nice smooth coat throughout. And before this sets up or has a chance to start getting tacky, we'll get our darker tone and we'll mist it. Usually I kind of go around a border and a little bit in the center here. Just a little magic. And again, you probably can't see that really well on the screen, but it adds a nice little two-tone effect. So that's it. You just mist one over the other while it's still wet, and you'll have a nice gradient. You don't have to worry about airbrushing to get a nice smooth transition. I mean, God, I wish you could see this better on here, but that's as smooth as I can get it. It looks airbrushed already, so I don't have to mess with it. So does my hand. Yay! All right, so that's kind of drying a little bit. Making tape balls. Boop. And this is just painter's tape, everyone. If you don't know what this tape is, you need to. This is like a cosplay. You need these. All the tape balls, that's right. Sorry if this keeps pausing and reconnecting. There's a online school right now, so everybody and their mother is on the freaking internet. Okay, so loosey goosey. Got our loose tape ball. Go ahead and add some textures here. Dab, 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 dab. Yeah, look at that. I like that. Ferocious dabbing. This is the only dab that anybody should be doing. I'm just gonna say that out there. All right, I'm stuck to this. Okay, here we go. Now, I want to make sure that when I'm doing my damage that there's not, like, you can't tell what has made the damage. You want to make sure it's doesn't have any hard square edges or anything like that, because you don't want it to be distinguishable. You want it to be, make sure that you don't know really what had hit this thing. Got a little bald patch here. Let's go ahead and shore that up a little bit. There we go. Do you hear chickens? There's a dove by me that's making noise. Dove, I should say. It's a pigeon. We have a pigeon over here. I say dove to be nice. You know, I don't want to assume it's whatever. So here we go. So we added our loose stuff in there. I didn't get a whole lot of paint picked out straight to the silver, so I want to kind of go back into that and try and see if I can get some of that. Upgrade that pigeon. So right here maybe, there we go. Normally, yes, you would hear chickens and stuff because there are the wild chickens that kind of roam around. And we have ducks now for some reason. There's a lot of ducks in my neighborhood just kind of roaming around. They always try to come in my garage. It's kind of irritating. Don't mind, I like the ducks. I just don't want them in my garage because they shit everywhere. Alright. Little edge action. See, it took that. I don't know if you see that. Did a nice little crazy paint chip because this isn't dry completely enough yet, so I might just do oh hello there paint chippies. All that foul language in the background. Oh my god. Foul language even. Yeah, I got it. That was pretty good. Alright. Yeah, I have a potty mouth, and so do the fowl. Alright. Oops. Lost connection with our tape ball. Get back in there. Boom! Oh, I lost my big tape ball. I fell on the floor. Alright. So it's starting to set up so we can start edging it now. At least. I hope. Oh, see what I did there? An oops. It's okay. Take the oops and turn it into something better. So there's going to be damage coming off of that. Quite a bit, I guarantee. Just because I messed up. Oh, another note is whatever direction you're scratching in, pull that direction. I don't say that, but you need to do that. If you don't do that, you end up tearing a larger section out than you want it to, and it just doesn't fit right with the direction that your nail went. Could rip up a whole lot more than you intended to. Here we go. See, it's starting to edge now better. I'm going to take more paint off this corner, expose that metal a little bit more. Wonder if there's a good way to have the textured parts but a different color than the smooth parts like primer showing through. Yeah, so I kind of said that earlier. It was depending on the actual way you want to paint this. So let's say I want chunks of primer to show through. You can actually overlay and paint. So you have your silver base down, you leave it, you paint some primer over this section of the silver and you leave it, and then when you do your overcoat, like the orange, and you tape ball, instead of getting metal flakes you'll get primer flakes. I used tape balls for the back plate and cotton piece. Very useful. Yeah. I'm glad this helps, if it any. I try to make sure that I share any new tips and tricks that I learn with everybody else, because I feel like that's how this community grows, and that's how it makes it easier for, especially for people who are just starting out. I feel like, why not share the knowledge? I know back in the day it used to be kind of like a trade secret, things here and there, which I don't really like. I frown upon trade secrety stuff. Just if anybody knows me, they know that I don't like the elitism kind of stuff, and not that there's a lot of that, but there is some. and it's toxic. So oops. The downside of, okay, see, I can't pull any tape up because I can't hold the part down. Problems. Running into problems here. Gotta make a handle. There we go. Good enough. And I might actually go through and demonstrate the primer under effect on one of the other pieces, just so that we have it, because I do need to do that for the helmet. I did it for the helmet, so I gotta do it for at least a couple of the pieces, so that way there's a nice transition through the whole kit. There you go. Definitely need more. Damage through there. So I figure if this is an Ahsoka, it went through a lot of shenanigans. I'll see, even got little fingerprints here. I don't know how I got those fingerprints, but we're gonna take those away. Goodbye, fingerprint. Goodbye. That's not too bad. Let's see. Yeah, added battle damage. A lot of times I'll do is I'll just stick my finger in a corner I know that I can mess up, and I'll just hold it down. I normally don't have this much trouble doing this stuff because I'm normally doing two hands completely. This is really hard working around stuff, and I have a lot better grip on the backside. The tape does not like to stick to this ABS plastic, I'll tell you that right now, which is a lot of why I worried about the primer and all that fun stuff too. There, so I think, should we do a little bit more of the edges just in case? I feel like you're always going to have to make sure your edges, especially like in these areas, get a little something. Yeah. High spots. We definitely need high spot damage. There we go. I think that's good for this plate. We'll have like a little stuff there. All right. So now we have two plates, nice and coated. This one should be, yeah, this one feels good. Now sometimes too, what I'll do is if you want to get super crazy with it and carry stuff through, is kind of space your plates out a little bit. On a table or whatever, and if you want a piece of damage that follows up through, like if I was going to carry damage from this part over to this part, I would add damage here and then heavy damage here, but I wouldn't do any right on this edge or right on this edge, because the way that these are laying out is they kind of curve in, so the damage will be only on the upper surfaces, if that makes sense. So there's a bit of damage here and there's a bit of damage here that kind of looks like it's all coming from the same thing, and same thing with here and here. So if I wanted to get a little bit more creative, let's say carry a scratch up from here to here. Let's just try and see if we can do that with our tape real quick. So let's say we're going to gouge. Should we gouge here up or here up? Let's do right here. So just gently lay that on. Add a little scratch. Oops. This might be too dry. Here, we'll go down here. Okay, you see how it kind of divoted in right there? Let's go back and forth. Okay, so we got a scratch. Now that scratch will follow through, kind of position these a little bit better, to about here. So go ahead and just add a little up. And see, remember what I said about pulling? Pull the whole part. But it's not bad. That's fine. Leave it. There we go. Now we're starting to see that scratch. And you can dig your nail in there a few times. Just got to be careful when you're doing this that it doesn't, you're not pushing down all the rest of the tape, just the part that you want scratched off. There. So now when your plates line up, it's got damage that kind of follows through this way. Not too bad. If you knew a bandolier was going to be worn over this to make marks in the paint like the leather had worn away over time. Yeah, so that's another thing that you could do. So when you're doing this is, like I said before, this is all just kind of a base coat. This is our under layer, or our primary layer. So when we go and add other tones and textures, or if we're adding let's say you want to add like designs over the top of it and stuff, the designs over the top, you can weather more in those areas as well, just to kind of give it that much more of a feel. Also, when you're doing your black washes or your red washes or whatever color you decide to go with for that, this might be a little bit of black and red wash. I didn't pull the red out today, but another thing you do is just drag your nail. I should have said that. And to get a nice clean line, just drag your nail through it, just like that. You got little scratch marks. So when you do your washes, you can wipe away more in the areas where that stuff would be rubbing, and then you'll definitely get that effect as well. And you can, the way that I do my armor is you can change it constantly. You can keep adding to it, you can take away from it. I don't ever add a clear coat over anything. Nothing that I've painted has a clear coat over it, and there's a few reasons for that. The first reason being is when you add a clear coat over a metallic paint, the metallic sheen to it disappears. It turns it into a dull gray, or a kind of gunmetal gray. It's not shiny and reflective anymore, so the light doesn't bounce off of it, especially in photos. If you're doing a bunch of cool photos out in the sunlight and stuff, the sun is going to pick up on those reflective surfaces, and it's going to pick up all the little bit of damage that you have in here. If you paint with a clear coat, it's going to dull those down. So in photos and stuff like that, you're just going to have these dull gray marks through it. It's not going to have like a pop of sparkle or color or whatever you want to say is coming off of it, just because it's not going to be there. It's not reflective. So even in this surface, so every time you move the part, you get like a new bit of sheen, or these are still picking up with the light. If I were to spray over that, it would completely get rid of that. And the way that this stuff is, it's kind of like a semi-gloss satin shine already, so you don't need to have the clear coat to make this stay looking metallic. So it adds that more of metal feel to it, and it doesn't really dull out over time. I mean, all my helmets, everything that I painted with all this stuff has pretty much stayed the same. And the other thing is a lot of people, they clear coat because they don't want the damage to change. So if you're doing a hero costume, like a Boba Fett, that has to be Merc certified or 501st certified, anything like that, people do clear coats to make sure that the damage doesn't change. There is no clear coat in space. That's the greatest thing ever. I agree. But so they don't want the damage to change. They want it to stay the same as it was in the film. So, and there's a lot of nitpickers when it comes to that. So you kind of have to. But for any sort of Mando or custom cosplay that is like this, It's going to evolve no matter what. So every time you put the kit on, it might chip, like if you bump into something or you drop it, the plate or something, and it chips paint or scratches, that's adding more detail to it. It's adding more damage to it that it looks natural. It's not going to look manufactured. It's not going to look like, hey, that guy's got a nice clear coat over everything, and it would smooth all of this out. So you wouldn't see all these roughed textures. If I were to clear coat this whole thing, it would all look like this shiny reflective surface. It would fill all these little voids in, and we would end up with just a flat surface. And we don't want that, because in photos and stuff, you want to be able to see depth, and you want to be able to feel this. Like, that's another thing is when I'm painting helmets, when I do all this stuff, I like that that texture. It makes it feel more real. So that's why I do this. Do I ever worry about it wearing through the metallic layer to the bare plastic? So far, no. So the oldest kit I have is the green kit, which I wear most of the time, is the Island Fet kit, if you will. Oops, that's going to roll off too. And I've taken to cons, I've jumped off things, I've beat stuff up. Again, like I say this all the time, I'm not careful with anything. And I will say that I haven't really had anything go straight down to the plastic. But even if it did, when you're doing washes and stuff like this, you're not going to notice. The helmet here, like I was showing before, this is all the way to the primer. That's all the way down. Like, and see how you can almost see the lip on all this stuff and the little metallic edge around it. And that was an accident, but I really, really like the way that looks. So even if it does go all the way down to the plastic, it's no biggie. It kind of just blends in, especially if you're doing heavy textures and stuff. I do have a helmet that I did that with. So one of the first helmets I ever painted, I kind of was like, I don't necessarily like this helmet. Not that I don't like it because of the design or the, I just didn't like the way I painted it. So I started sanding the paint off. It was before I found Montana Gold. It was before I found a bunch of other stuff. And it's a resin cast helmet. It's heavy. It's uncomfortable. It looks cool. But when I started sanding all the stuff off of it, because I wanted to redo the paint, I actually really, really liked the way it looked. So there are spots of it that go all the way down to bare plastic or the bare resin, but it looks good. Hold on, I'll go grab it. Hold on, just a second. Hear me. All right. So here's this. So this is the first helmet ever that I painted. Let me move all this stuff out of the way real quick. This is the very first one. Now, I was using Krylon paints and some metallic paints, and I actually clear coated it. So you can see this all just looks gray. It's not really shiny. It's just grayed out. That's because there's a clear coat over this thing. This all looked like that shiny silver before, and I clear coated it and it dulled it out. But if you look, I started sanding all this stuff off. This is all sanding. It took all this paint down. It took down to the bare resin in a bunch of spots, and I think it just adds to it. It just adds to the wear, even on this side, and the back side especially. Like, if you do get something where it's scratched hard, like if you drop your helmet on the ground and it nicks like just like this much in there, and you just nicks a chunk out of it, use that as an opportunity to improve. So this is straight to the resin, and I just messed it up. And I'll go over, we'll add more stuff here in a second. This video live stream is going to time out in 19 seconds. So we're going to take a quick